Now we're going to talk to Robert Greenwald from Brave New Films. They've got 3 massively relevant campaigns going on. One is on Afghanistan. There's a lot of news there. One is on the Arizona law, and as we saw earlier today, with a federal judge stopping the Arizona law, a lot of news there. But also, they're running a campaign against Carly Fiorina and connecting her to the Tea Parties, just as the DNC launched their campaign to connect the Republican Party to the Tea Parties. So, Robert, it looks like, man, do you have your finger on the pulse of what's going on in the country?
Well, there's a lot going on, and but the most important, I want to echo what you said, we want everybody to watch MSNBC when you're on next week, because we want you having your own show there sooner rather than later.
All right. God bless. I like that. All right. Now, Robert, before we talk to you, I want to show the video that you put together at Brave New Films about Carly Fiorina, and then we'll come back and talk about it.
Okay.
Yeah, kind of surprised that I took some heat for endorsing Carly, and yet she's pro-life, she's pro-Second Amendment, she's anti-big government, anti-tax, she's pro-development, all those things in the deep blue state of California.
Keep Obama's hands off my big man!
Obama is a communist.
What did you do? You parasite socialist!
You don't love anything but your stupid, scorpion, stinking little tail!
The only good communist is a damn communist!
I'll tell you what, we are all members of one party now. We are members of the Had Enough Party.
These folks are making a huge difference in the political dialogue in this country. And good for them.
The federal government does not create the American dream, although the federal government can surely destroy the American dream.
And she unabashedly calls herself a common sense conservative. She's the real deal, so happy there to endorse her.
What I see out here is a bunch of hard-working Americans who care enough to come out and get politically active and express their views. And I agree with them.
Go back home! Yeah, go home.
And I agree with them.
All right, Robert, I'll give you this. That's tough. Okay. Now, but I got to ask you, look, is that fair? Because some of those protests and rallies are not where Carly Fiorina was. Is it fair to stick her with the whole Tea Party?
Well, that's exactly why we labeled it clearly. Yes, it's absolutely fair. She went out, she solicited the Tea Party, she's talked in front of the Tea Party, and what we made very clear is contextualizing it and saying, here is where she spoke, here are other parts of the Tea Party, and this is the kinds of positions and people and statements that she is refusing to denounce and separate herself from. And I think our job, particularly in the state of California, as she tries to get elected to office, is to remind the people of California how disconnected she is from the values that we basically believe in here.
So, by the way, let me pause here to ask you, do you think she has a chance? I mean,
oh, yeah.
In California?
Very strong chance, unfortunately. You know, this is an election of throw out the bums who are in office. It doesn't matter. And the polls are showing them very close right now, which is not a good sign. So I think we need to continue to educate people about her positions. And we're working on the next video now, which will remind people that she supports the Arizona law.
You know, I'm surprised she's doing well in the polls because her main thing is, her main credentials is that she's a business person and she ran Hewlett-Packard. But she got fired, basically. She ran it into the ground. I mean, wouldn't attacking those credentials make more sense?
Well, I think there's a variety of fronts to attack and educate people about what she stands for. And, you know, an election, in any kind of election, is a series of pieces of a pie, right? So one piece is a Tea Party piece, another piece is immigration, another piece is choice, and a critical piece is jobs. So I don't think people will care, frankly, that she got fired from running a big company, but the fact that she got rid of between 15 to 30,000 people in outsourced jobs, I think is an important piece of information that we will also hopefully be able to bring to people's attention.
I think people would also care about her golden parachute. You know, as she outsourced those jobs, how well does she get rewarded, especially as the company did not do well from her decisions?
Correct, and that's also part of the problem, by the way. She's going to have, who knows, you know, she won't have as many, she's not the billionaire or multi-billionaire that Meg Whitman is, but she's going to have hundreds of millions of dollars of her own money to spend, and it looks like she's going to begin to do that sooner rather than later.
So let me go back to this strategy of labeling her with a Tea Party. You know, this is what I call the Howard Dean strategy, not because Howard Dean did it, but it got done to Howard Dean, and it got done to the Democrats during the Bush years. So Fox News would take something that they considered inflammatory that Howard Dean said, and then they'd ask every Democrat that came on, oh, are you with Howard Dean or against Howard Dean, right? And it's an interesting strategy. Do you think it's fair to use it against Republicans and specifically in this case again?
Well, it's absolutely fair. Republicans who will not separate themselves from the Tea Party. Look, it's a big difference if there were a Republican with an ounce of guts and said, these people are do not represent what I believe in. They're, you know, all the litany of accusations about both their policy and the way that they act, then of course they could separate themselves from it. It's very easy. But Carly Fiorina went and spoke at Tea Party rallies. She's asking for their support, and she's supporting them. And I think it's malpractice for us not to drive that home over and over and over again. And I think hopefully we'll be seeing that coming forward.
You know, one other, actually the part of the video I like the most, Robert, and we're talking to Robert Greenwald, who of course runs Brave New Films, is when she's like bobbing her head. She's like, the one party we're all from is the had enough party. What did they have enough of? I mean, at the end of the 7 to 8 years that Bush, we had had enough of the warrantless wiretapping and the wars and the torture, etc. What's their main beef? Why is Carly Fiorina tying herself to the Tea Party? What do they have in common that they've had enough of?
Well, I think basically they're not in common. The Tea Party is primarily driven around economic stuff, which has turned into hatred and animosity and a whole series of irrational positions. But at the core of the Tea Party is a series of older white folks who are justifiably angry and upset that they've lost their 401ks, they've lost their homes, they've lost their jobs, and unfortunately, progressives have not done a good enough or strong enough job of identifying the real problem in the way the system works. So they're turning on Obama or they're turning on immigrants, you know, kicking those who they think are responsible for their plight. Carly Fiorina, who is a billionaire, has very little or nothing in common with them, but she also doesn't have the moral character or the guts to separate herself from them.
All right, and then finally, you think if Barbara Boxer wins that she's going to try to get us out of Afghanistan, or is that a pipe dream until July 2011?
Well, I think that there's going to be a lot of effort to extend July 2011. So hopefully Boxer and others will speak up louder and clearer over time, saying as the military puts pressure to extend the date because they've never met a war that they didn't want to continue, it will become increasingly important that we put great pressure on our elected officials and say to them, speak up loud and clear. This is a tragedy.
The 114 votes you got in the House to not fund the Afghanistan war, good enough, not good enough, good start, bad start? Thoughts there?
Well, you know, half empty or half full. It's certainly better than it was, but it's not good enough when if the situation reversed, if this were a Republican war, there'd probably be 200 Democratic votes against this war. It's partisan politics at its worst, and again, I think it's critical for progressives who have seen the light on Afghanistan early and clearly to raise hell, and there's a unique opportunity now, right, which is the cost of the war, and we've been hitting that at Brave New Films in our Rethink campaign. We'll continue to hit it. There is no money for anything except there's a blank check for an obscene war that's not making us any safer, and in fact is achieving the opposite.
Robert, where can people find out more about Carly Fiorina and her connection to people?
Well, if they go to the Brave New Films website, it's there, or they can go to Facebook. We've got things up there, and we're all over.
All right, sounds good. Robert Greenwald from Brave New Films. Thank you so much for joining us.
My pleasure.
All right, we'll be right back.